On Tuesday, December 17th, and this is a meeting of the Advisory Budget Committee in Madison, New Hampshire, in Town Hall Meeting Room, lower level. I am Sharon Schilling, the chairman of the committee. To my left is Joy Gray, who is the selectman's representative, and then to my right is Joe Dame, who is the vice chairman of the committee. The three of us do constitute a quorum. We have other members, Sarah DiMartino, who is unavoidably absent tonight, and then Rick Judkins, who, once we take a vote, would like to Zoom into the meeting. So let's do the Pledge of Allegiance first. Oops.
Okay.
Yeah, I just kicked my water over.
Sorry. All right.
Yep.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So we're gonna, obviously, before we get to public comment, we're going to, is there anything I specifically have to say? Do I have to read?
The main thing is that the board, the quorum this year has to vote to allow him to attend contemporaneously. He has to announce who is
In the
present
room with him, right.
And then all votes are by roll call. And that's,
Okay, so there's no real motion to enter
I'll
electronic
make a motion
participation?
to allow
Rick.
Rick Judkins to join remotely.
Okay,
Second that motion.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And let it be known, the reason that he's not in physical attendance is because he is in Florida. So,
No, I'm in North Carolina.
oh, North Carolina, sorry. Okay, so we will allow him to participate. Rick, can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, it just went up.
Okay, no,
That's
it's
fine.
still on the
Okay,
laptop, so we
all
can
right.
always look at it. Okay, and you can see us?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. We can hear you. So you might want to, although, just make sure you speak clearly and enunciate just in case. Should something happen and we lose the connection, I do have the phone number where you are, and I will call you from this, and we will allow you to continue via just voice teleconference if we lose the Zoom, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
and if there's anyone with him right now.
Right. Rick, do you have anyone with you in the office there?
No, I'm alone.
Okay. Identify not present to vote, okay. And then, should we vote on anything tonight, all votes will be via roll call. Okay, thank you. All right. We also have not a big issue, but a small issue where with a bit of a time constraint. So I will probably take the agenda items out of order, just so that we can get to some of the things that are of a higher priority before we have a member who has to be somewhere else at a certain time, so.
Does that end your thing, because you won't have a quorum?
I don't need the quorum, I will still have a quorum with the three of us. He's here for a Zoom, so I would still have a quorum, but does a quorum have to be physically present in the room
Well, it says a quorum's supposed to be present.
when you vote,
Does
right?
it say that, or does it say?
Oh, I don't know, it just said.
Yeah, my understanding is that you have to have a quorum to allow someone in, but I think then now you have your quorum plus one, so I think.
The procedures require that a quorum be physically present at the location of the meeting.
In order
And
to
we
vote
are.
someone in
But,
In order to create
Does that say to let someone in, or they have?
for the whole meeting.
I was at-
read
Yeah.
it specifically, read the whole thing.
Okay. The right to know law has a section RSA 91-A2, paragraph 3, on electronic participation by members whose attendance at a meeting is not reasonably practical. The reasons that attendance is not reasonably practical must be stated in the minutes, which we did. It is up to the committee whether it wants to permit the participation, which
We did.
Yeah. The procedures require that a quorum be physically present at the location of the meeting.
And we are.
Full.
Okay?
It doesn't give any greater specificity as to, it has to remain a quorum throughout the entire meeting,
I'm not
so-
sure what, I'm not an expert on this.
That's not the
RSA.
actual RSA you're reading, that's just the
Right.
points.
But this is just a summary, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it reads. The person not in attendance and the members physically present must all be able to simultaneously hear and speak to each other. Okay, we meet that. The public at the meeting location must also be able to hear the person not present. The person not present must identify any persons present in his location, and the person not present can vote, but all votes must be by roll call.
Okay.
I question myself, if you have to actually still have a quorum present when this is all going on.
So what we can do, though, is we can continue the meeting, we can delay any voting on anything other than adjourning.
I interpret that as we have to have a quorum present here.
We have a
the whole-
quorum
Yeah,
present.
For the
but-
duration of the
But
meeting.
once one of the members depart later.
All right,
All right,
Okay.
well, let's
All right.
go and
Let's
get
go
as
then.
much
Let's just
done,
go,
and
go,
if
go.
we have to cut the meeting, we cut the meeting.
yep.
Okay, the first section is public comment. Mr. Dempster?
Hi, good evening. Bill Dempster, 157 Doe Drive. Appreciate the opportunity. Kind of, in the past couple weeks, I'm bouncing some ideas off the chair on the revenue end. If you know, I was here last time and we talked about, where I presented potential of driving revenue from fees and fines. And then Chair and I have briefly discussed such things as automating our licensing and fire permits and things like that, maybe save some money time there. So recently, over the weekend, I started, well, instead of the revenue end, let's look at the expenditure end. What can we do? I came from Nashua. We had a 2% cap budget. So I started going down that path, and lo and behold, I found out that Senate Bill 383 was passed and signed. And I have some information here for the board. It's now under RSA. I only did the applicable parts of it, and that first page is an explanation of it. But basically, it provides the, if I can just read from it, it provides the municipalities to cover the municipality budget, including all warrant articles, that have a tax impact. In addition, if the town decides to vote on it, it has impact for the school budget also. They did a formula. It's based on inflation rates, and it's also based on school population. So if the population of the school goes down, it'll take care of that. It seems to me pretty equitable. If you'll notice on the second page, that's only part of the RSA that explains what can be done. The formula is in there also.
Can you hand that to Linda?
But it seems to me with, I've watched all of the meetings, and we're all struggling with what to do with the budget. In my opinion, in having been a manager, for 15 years, when it comes to budget time, you gotta find some way to, instead of trying to scratch your head, you gotta have some type of documentation or something that allows you, okay, I can only go this amount over the budget, and that's what this does. And I think it fairly takes into account not only the population size, and it's a school population that they're looking at, but also looks at potential inflation indices. I don't know if we can do it this go-around. I think it might be too late. I just happened to get this at noontime before I went to my doctor's appointment. I had to take a look at it. But I think it might be something we can look at for next year. It has to go before the town. It has to have a 3/5 vote on it. And I know, Sharon, you had a question whether we had already adopted this. I don't think so.
Right,
because it
so
was new.
when I look at the RSA, or it says Senate Bill 383 FN, it says that it's basically for the towns, municipalities that have already adopted
Right.
this bill. I would presume
think
we
we
have
have.
not.
No, no.
Yeah, I mean, it only just came out in what, July? May?
It was.
May, this
Uh,
summer.
Dated May.
Yeah, it was signed on late spring by the governor, and
Yeah.
it went into effect on
So
October.
then it would not have been able to be voted on by the town. I think the proper procedure then would be to propose it as a warrant article
Right.
and have it go before the town for a vote this go-round. It does, I will make a clarification in reading through this. The school population is only if you're doing, there's two pieces to this. There's a town budget, operating budget cap, and then there's a school district budget operating cap. The cap for the school district takes into account the school population. The cap for the town takes into account the town's population.
Correct.
So, yeah, and it adjusts for inflation, it allows for inflation. It has a formula, it's last year's base times 1 plus the consumer price index, plus the population, or times the population and or attendance for the school. I think it's reasonable to at least take a look at this. What it does allow is it allows for the budget to continue to increase. It just limits what that increase can be in order to not,
Kind of roll the dice a little.
no, right, well, that, you're not, yeah. So
Well,
I
also,
would,
I think, Madam, it also, Madam Chair, it also gives, if you know what the increase is going to be, it gives the department heads, okay, I can only work with this much of a bucket. I
Right.
can't go over it, so it gives them,
what the max increase can be.
Max increase.
And that's just the operating budget. This does not affect warrant articles.
it does,
Oh, it does?
Does it as
I
well?
didn't see that.
it does, it affects. Takes into account the warrant articles also, so it's a total tax package.
Okay. Local taxes raised by the prior year, okay. So seeing as how we obviously, the budget committee don't have any authority to enact this, right? It has to go before the town.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that at the next Board of Selectmen's meeting, perhaps the idea of this should be raised. You have the right and the ability to propose it. If the Board of Selectmen don't want to take it on as a town warrant article, you have the right to do it as a petition warrant article. That just requires 25 signatures, I believe. What's the deadline for warrant articles to be presented, Linda?
February 4th this
February-
year, it's this
I don't
first
think
Tuesday.
it'll probably happen, I don't think it'll happen this year. I think it's gonna require some work to take a look at it and get the, unless somebody, we wanna do something real quick and try to get it through, I have no problem with that.
Well, I think, it's pretty specific in the state bill, or the Senate bill. I think what we would need to do is sit down and really kind of take a look at this. The worst case scenario is it gives an upper limit. Again, this does not, from what I can tell, what I saw, this does not limit you from reducing your budget. It just proposes a max for the
Kind of a
increase
cap
that you
on
can.
it.
Yes, it
It's a
puts a
cap.
cap
It's
on
a
it.
cap.
Especially the cap.
Question becomes with things that are, like say fixing the dam, where there might be a significant amount of monetary outlay by the town for a particular thing. Does this then hamstring the town in its ability to manage those things?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we might need a tax lawyer to take a look at this, or a municipal lawyer to take a look at it.
I don't think this is something you wanna rush into. I just happened to see it, and I said, well, maybe I should just have a year to go,
Right.
get stuck.
Do you know of any towns or cities in New Hampshire? Is it
He said Nashua?
Nashua implemented this already?
No, this is
okay, all
brand
right.
new. They have-
Brand new,
This one
okay.
is, but they had a
They have
cap.
they have a straight 2% cap.
It looks
Okay,
like this was,
separate from this legislation? Yeah, okay.
Separate from legislation.
this says it was
And
effective
again, it has to go
October
before
1st.
the
Right.
legislative body to determine whether, and it's not just a majority, it's 3/5.
So I was just curious if anyone has implemented it, so we could see how they implement it, how it worked.
Yeah, no, it looks like the RSA went into effect October 1st, 2024.
Right,
So-
2 months ago.
Yeah,
2 months
so
ago,
nobody
just
would have had
started.
a
Okay,
chance
just
to
started.
vote it in.
And it might not be a bad thing, we're gonna have a 5-person board for the selectmen.
Okay.
Okay.
So-
Would you be interested in, if we were to form some sort of a working group in order to
Sure.
kind of really pick this apart, and would you be interested in supporting that and helping with it?
As long as it doesn't interfere with fishing season, I'm good.
Your municipal responsibilities
Abilities.
outweigh fishing.
When is opening day this year? Dave?
Third Saturday of trout ponds.
So what I'll do, Linda, if you don't mind, I'm not gonna be at the next meeting, this is killing me, the Board of Selectmen's meeting. But I do think, can I ask Selectman Gray to bring this forward and discuss it with the Board of Selectmen?
Reading it, I am not obviously in these 5 minutes we've looked at it in a
Yeah.
position to discuss it in depth.
No.
But obviously, I can request respectfully, Linda, that this be part of the packet on Tuesday. And Bill, if you will you be there, Monday? Would you
Yeah,
be
it's
able to be
Monday.
there Monday and speak to it?
The Board of Selectmen's meeting.
Had to move to Monday
Because of
This coming
Christmas
Monday?
Eve,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's Christmas, yeah.
I think so.
This upcoming Monday is the 23rd at 4:30?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention, there's been also a couple other bills that have been passed and signed into law, which is HB 1265 and HB 1195, which talks more about the accountability and providing information to the taxpayers for the school budgets. And I was telling Sharon a little bit about it, just let me read here. It's called the Students Act, First Act, signed into law this year by the governor. Carter School Districts produced 4 charts at least a week before their annual budget meeting in March. The list includes 3-line charts. One to show the average teacher salary of the past 10 years, another to show the average administrative salary over the same period, and a third to indicate the annual cost per pupil at the district over the same time period. And the 4th chart is showing the salaries to the top 4 highest paid administrators in the school district. And I think this has all been generated because of the salary discrepancies with teachers and administrators in town. So it's probably something you're.
Not just this town, across the state.
Yeah, across the
Yeah.
state. Yeah, it's across the state.
What were the bills you referenced?
Excuse me?
What were the bills? 1265
and 1195?
Yeah, 1265 and HB 1195.
And they both passed this year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
How was the procedure for just an audience? So when you were mentioning
You
those charts that
you do have to address questions to us,
Okay, so my question.
and you have to state your name so that we know.
Linda
And please
Haber.
stand up so people can see you. Sorry, lots of rules.
Linda Haver.
Don't slouch.
My,
And your address, sorry.
35 Pebblebrook Road, Madison, New Hampshire. My question, I just wasn't listening closely enough about those charts for the, I heard all of that about the salary, but like, do any charts about performance of students have to be included?
I didn't see that on there.
Okay,
This
that
has
was
strictly
all
to do with
I
budget.
wanted to
I
know.
think this is, yeah, strictly budgeting issues,
Okay.
And
so.
they have to be, just has to be the straight data, show the chart, no massaging it, all that. So, something you probably
Okay.
want to be aware of, like the town people, when they go to, if they go to that budget meeting for the school.
The deliberation, the school deliberation meeting,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, the other thing too is I have written down these numbers. I can email both Jim Curran, who's the school board chair, and Heather Woodard, who's the principal, and Mike Whalen, Dr. Mike Whalen, who's the SAU
Yep.
13 superintendent. I would think that he would need definitely, because we're not the only school in this district, obviously, that he would need to be aware of that, and then he could filter down to his principals the requirements and have that ready for us.
Okay.
So, but thank you for
Yep,
making us
thank you
aware
very
of
much.
this, I appreciate it. Okay, anyone else? Whoop, Nicole?
Nicole?
I'm just a little late to the game, but, I'm just curious if there's been any work on reducing the budget. It's been asked every year for 3 years. And, still in bad times, economic times, and everything's wicked expensive. And if you, as a board, have discussed asking for a reduction in the budget
Yes.
or being, in my opinion, representative of the people and just voting no. Just if you don't wanna talk about it and you honestly think that the budget's too high, just, you don't support it. It goes a long way to help the townspeople understand where, it seems like if it's approved by the budget committee, and I spent 6 years on it, and approved by the selectmen, everybody's like, sure, we see these huge increases.
Right.
And it's just, I remember one specific vote I made as a budget committee member that I deeply regretted, and I made sure I said it at 4 different meetings. And it was for $1.4 million, by the way, it wasn't for, a silly little vote. And I deeply regretted that because it really affected taxpayers negatively. So I just am asking if there's been any talk about just, if the budget's due to go up significantly, which I haven't put my eyes on, I was hoping there'd be a little handout today. To just say no.
I can
Somebody
speak
say
to
no for love of God.
So I can speak to what the budget committee did.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, you can have Sarah's packet. 2 meetings ago, we voted as a budget committee to convey to the selectmen, who are in charge of the town budget, that the budget committee wanted to see, in line with the governor's sort of edict to remain level, that was sort of the worst case scenario, and the best case scenario would be that the selectmen could find a 2 to 3% budget reduction. 3% of last year's budget, if you look at last year's budget, is a little over $100,000. There are, I think, I don't want to say lots of opportunities, but there are opportunities within the budget to be able to find something that maybe they don't get to 100,000, but there's a significant road to that. I presented that at the select board meeting just after that budget committee meeting. The selectmen didn't really discuss it. They took it under advisement, said they hadn't even really seen the budget yet. They didn't get the budget till the beginning of this month, so only about 2 weeks ago did they get the budget. So with that information and the budget in hand, I expect that they're doing anything and everything they possibly can to figure out where this is going to stand. I do know that at the last select board meeting, and I'll let Selectman Gray address this, that part of the warrant articles and the budget were discussed, and I know that there was one area, at least in the warrant article, where a warrant article was reduced by almost $100,000, or maybe more than $100,000. But I'll let you address that.
Yeah. So that first. Traditionally, DPW has had had a warrant article for $200,000 to do road repairs. Last year was $250,000. This year they did an audit of the roads. Joe actually helped with that. They identified that they would need $500,000 this year to do the most urgent road work. At the last select board meeting, Selectman Aruda proposed that it go down to $400,000, so it did. Folks were working, Linda got a lot of information for everyone regarding the health insurance for town employees. Joe again did a
Yeah,
ton
I
of.
can address that.
I'll
Yeah, once you're done. Yeah, I can.
And if
Let me go.
Well, the long and short of it
the
is,
warrant article for 400,000 fails, do they get zero?
Well, people obviously can negotiate on the floor, so we'll see.
Right, I'm just wondering, because when you ask for that much over what we're used to paying, there is some chance that it
there's
could
risk.
Yep.
fail,
No, I
and
know.
then you get nothing. So it just makes more sense to make it more reasonable from the get-go.
Yeah.
Well-
So was dropped by 1,000.
100,000.
Yeah, thank you, 100,000. A few zeros missing.
When you have 6 to 8 roads that are in what the road survey calls critical condition or poor condition, there are things that have to be done that have been not done in previous years due to either constraints or whatever. So weighing those particulars against the tax burden, that's why I'm going to publicly say it. I'm urging people to come to these meetings, come hear the explanations for what the town is asking for, what the different department heads need in terms of funding to perform their functions, and challenge them and say, do you need $500,000? Why do you need $500,000? Now it's going to be $400,000, but why do you need that? And are there priorities that can be moved, shifted, changed? Do you have to do it to that extent? Those are questions taxpayers, I encourage you to come and ask, whether it be the selectmen's meeting or this meeting, from a budgetary standpoint, so that you can have a good understanding when it comes to town meeting of what it is, and the Tuesday vote, what it is you're voting for. It's important. There were some because I don't want to get into all the nitty-gritty
No, I don't
specifics.
think so.
There were some savings that the town achieved by shifting the health insurance plan to a different plan, so that saved us probably close to
$100,000.
$100,000. And then the selectmen also took the recommendation from the budget committee to increase, no, it's not if you will, it's to increase the employees' contribution. They were contributing 5%. The committee recommended that the employees contribute 10% because the statewide average is 14%. And we thought 10% was a much more reasonable request. The selectmen went with 7%. So the employee contribution will go up another 2%. I have yet to ask Joe to recalculate all those numbers and see what that total savings will actually be. So,
And then John Arruda said that he would like to see it go up to 10% next
Next year.
But said, of course, he won't be around to implement that, so he's
But-
relying on whoever's left at the time to do it.
it's on tape now, so.
Yeah, Nicole, we did a really deep dive. I worked closely with Linda on the health insurance. I spent months on it, doing cost comparisons between old plans and new plans.
plans.
We reached, I ran all the numbers on employee contributions, what the impact would be on the cost on the employees, how much cost savings. And we found a plan through the same company, Blue Cross, Anthem Blue Cross, that has higher deductibles, a little bit higher co-pays, things like that, but it was a significant cost savings. And I presented a pretty detailed paper to the committee here. It went to the Board of Selectmen, and they agreed that, yeah, we're gonna shift to this lower cost plan. It looked like about $100,000 cost savings right there. And then, as Sharon mentioned, I ran numbers for, current contribution 5% all the way up to 14%. I looked at national averages, what state, federal, local employees were paying towards health insurance, their contributions. And in New England, it's about 14%. So that's why we proposed the 10%. So, because we were already going with a lower cost plan, so I think the thought with Mr. Arruda and others was we didn't kind of want a double whammy on the employees first, but the agreement was that we would go up to the 10% in 2026. And on the roads, I know it came up just real quick.
Let me, just
Okay.
also with the health insurance is that the employees will be contributing that same 7% for dental and vision as well.
Yeah, the dental was free before,
Dental.
just for employee. I want to make that
Dental
clear
and vision.
because Linda and I worked on
I think it was
this.
just dental.
Right.
I don't think we even mentioned vision, I don't remember.
Well, it's kind of a.
It's kind of the
It's a
same thing.
combo.
It's
That
the-
has
it's the
a little
same.
bit of vision.
It's through the same company.
Yeah.
It's a Delta dental vision plan.
Okay,
But there was no employee contribution again, but the town was only paying for the employee.
Right.
So at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, it was agreed that we would go 7% on the dental plan as well.
Which is about $3.
It's, yeah, $3-4 a month or something.
I think.
It wasn't, and
I don't know if per month or per paycheck, but.
per,
It's about $1.60 a paycheck.
yeah, so $3-4 a month. But again, we're trying to make sure that, there's a fair balance here. And the number, the 500K that's going around about the roads, actually, I went over, I met with Josh Shafford, Director DPW, and we went over the priority list of the roads. I went out and I drove the roads and surveyed the roads. And they have definitely been neglected for a decade, if not more. Roads like Town Line Road, it's falling apart. It's horrible. And I also looked at the cost now, past costs now, and in the future to rebuild these roads. In the last 2 or 3 years, per the Federal Highway Administration, road construction costs are up 53%. I mean, the oil, the asphalt, the labor,
That's actually what I
everything.
do for a living now, so I know.
Yeah, and, I mean, it's just more expensive. So the 250K that we spent last year, if we kept that again, we're getting, significantly less roads.
Right.
You know,
No, I understand.
and we're so far in the hole on the roads that we're not getting out. We're just putting a Band-Aid here and there, and.
I
yes,
guess
ma'am.
overall, it just, if you keep, I understand you, and almost everything in the budget can be explained away. I really want us to look into grants for the dam though. Call the state and say, it's your lake, what happens if we let it crumble? Are you gonna step in then, that kind of thing?
Yep.
But, just that as an elected, just remember you're representing people like myself that don't have dental, that don't have
No, I
vision.
understand.
And go home to stacks and stacks of thousands and thousands of dollars of medical bills every day.
There are-
So those are the people that have to pay the
No,
bill, you know,
yeah.
and I just, it's just, you know, it's gotta be a balance.
It-
Because I don't know anybody that has dental or vision.
Nicole, that's why I took a deep dive. Sharon knows, I spent 6 months on this.
Yeah,
Right.
no.
I mean, we did cost analysis
No,
after
I
cost
understand, I'm
analysis.
just saying it's a
I know,
balance,
yeah.
that there's,
Well,
the
the-
majority of
right.
the town doesn't have any of those things.
No,
The entire,
it's-
Yeah.
the entire budget is a balance,
Right.
and we understand that. We,
Yeah.
you know, looking at where the budget has stood in the last several years and watching it, yes, there's inflation in the cost of living, and the cost of goods post-COVID has just gone ridiculous. And so, I mean, we're aware that those things, but there are some areas where it's going to be, I don't wanna say impossible to cut, but it's very, very difficult. And you have to kind of, when you're building these budgets, you have to start with your fixed costs. Like, we can't change the cost of the contract with the ambulance service once it's negotiated.
understand that.
So those things are fixed costs from a budget's perspective.
Most of the school is fixed, so, yeah.
Yes and no, but regardless, so, but no, to answer your original question, yes, we are, and poor Linda can tell you, we pick apart, I don't, almost
No.
every single line we go through, we ask questions about. And unfortunately, half the time, Linda is the one who has to answer those questions. We are trying to get the answers from the department heads. I'm hoping they'll give those answers to the selectmen, and I'm hoping the selectmen will apply the same rigor to the budget that we have been,
So there have been other changes I can talk about.
I don't wanna go through all the changes.
No, there are two, I just
I
want to
know, but
mention two.
I don't, because we only have another half an hour, 45 minutes, and so,
Okay, all right.
you know, if people want a copy of the warrant articles, they can ask Linda and get
I have
them.
a copy, I'm gonna
So,
put it up first.
yeah,
Okay.
so, yeah,
No,
okay.
believe me, we're trying
100,000 off the
very hard.
master plan was struck.
This-
Right.
this
lady
has a
Another
question.
100,000, so.
I just wanted to say that, I so appreciate all the time and effort. It sounds like it's very time intensive. I love data. I think most people in town are reasonable, and if they have the data to support the need, that makes a big difference. And based on that, like 30 years ago, it seems like the school, the people that were at the school and the selectmen worked more closely together at budget time. So like what I'm hearing from you is, yeah, we've got 5 roads, or there's a lot, there's roads that need to be
In
worked.
really bad condition,
Yes.
yes.
And so, can the school not get something this year because the town needs, can you as a budget committee ask people to kind of, I mean, we all have our wants and our needs, but some needs might be bigger. Is there any way that the two of them can say, like, we need a fire truck this year, or the school needs, I don't know, the roof's falling in, so the town has to possibly not get something they want that year. I know you're doing long-range planning, but has there been any talk about them being aware of the needs in the other side of the budget?
So, as the chair of the budget committee, I went to the school's working session for their budget last night.
Okay,
I conveyed to them the same information that I've been conveying here tonight about the wanting the keep it level or seek a at best seek a 2 to 3% decrease in the budget. Currently, the school budget, as of last night, looks like it has about a 4.5% increase to it from the year before. One of the statements that I made to them is, understand, when I look at my tax bill, the school portion of that tax bill accounts for 55% of our tax bill. The perception on the citizenry's part is that's a lot of money, and it is. It's a lot of money. It's last year's budget was 7.1 million. They're at 7.4 million this year, working number. They are still, I implored them, you need to go back. They cut a half of a position last night from the budget. It was an unfilled position that hadn't been filled in
Yes,
2
I'm aware
years.
of that,
But they
yeah.
have to budget for it. They're not paying for it, but they have to budget for it if it's there. So they've decided that since they haven't filled it in 2.5 years, they're gonna cut it from the budget. because they can't find anyone to fill it. So, so if you're not gonna fill it, don't budget for it. That then puts them in a position where they can't fill it this year unless they come back and ask for permission to add a position to the school. But they're looking for areas where they can sharpen that pencil. One of the things that they talked about last night was there is some work to the play yard, the schoolyard, the what do they call those?
Playground?
The playground, thank
Playground,
you.
playground.
The playground that's on the not the side that's on the the one that you see driving by here. It's on the other side of the school. It's an adaptive playground. There was a move to want to upgrade that. They're going to put that off. They're not going to do it. That's going to save them $40,000. They were looking for grants. So their half would have to be $40,000, and they'd seek another $40,000 from a grant source. They're not going to do that. They're going to put it off for another year and do without it. So again, they're working, and they're working very hard. But understand that there are certain things that they can't control, like what Conway charges us for students to go to the middle school, and what Conway charges us for students to go to the high school. Okay, those numbers, the high school number cost is down. The middle school number went up significantly.
I don't think it's gonna stay up, but
We don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody knows yet because there's still, the poor SAU 9 has
Right.
like nobody to do their
my
work.
question, I guess, is do you ever encourage them, there's 111, I think, students, not counting the preschool. I think it's 125, they say are in the
130,
building.
pretty close to 130. Last
That's what
night,
they said
that's what,
last night.
including the ECE, which is the early child development piece
That's
of it,
the
right, the
preschool.
kindergarten,
Yeah.
right. So there's 111 regular students, there are 8 full-time teachers, and there are approximately 20 of those early child, and then they have 1 out-of-district student. So they account for 130 to 131 students. At the school, there are another 100, there's 80 at the high school and I think 20 at the middle school. There are another 100 students that we're paying for because they go
Right.
to those 2
Yeah.
schools. So all total, you're looking at 230, about 230 students.
You know, I was just looking at, I'm thinking of the number within the building and the number of teachers and staff
Right.
that are there, because you can't cut the contract, you can't cut, that, they're gonna get paid what they do, the only thing you
Right.
could do is cut a staff at some point.
So I implore you then, come to the school board meetings.
I've gone in the
Come- and-
past, they
and-
don't listen to me.
Well, if enough of us show up at the deliberative session, then they have to listen. They have to listen. Because the fallback is that the town will not vote for the school budget, and it'll end up being the default budget,
Default budget again, yeah.
which I think,
Sometimes it's higher, I've seen it.
but this year it would not be, it would be 7.1 million.
It'd be, same as last year.
Same, yeah.
Sharon?
Yes. Hi, Rick.
Has anybody addressed the freedom accounts and what that will do to the school budget?
They have looked at them, and they are accounting for them, and they do figure that into the budget. So I mean, I can't specifically address how much that freedom budget is, but I can tell you that I do know they talk about it. It is in the numbers. Heather Sherwood, when she runs her spreadsheet, does address the freedom numbers. They also address there's a piece where we pay for the early childhood teachers, but then it gets reimbursed by the SAU and
Not Freedom School, the Freedom Accounts.
the freedom
A
account.
statewide program
Paid for
where,
by the state.
Parental choice.
I'm not a school board
yeah. so-
aficionado. I don't really know what that is, so it's okay. That's a school board. We need to discuss that with the school board. I don't have any. I couldn't give you an answer, even if I knew what we were talking about. So that might be something to send an email to Jim Curran and ask him what the deal is with that and where that stands, and what's going on and how that figures into the budget. They have their next meeting is January 6th, I believe it is. So. Anything else? Any other public comment? We haven't even gotten past public comment yet. Anyone? No? Okay. Let's get the approval of the December minutes done. That way, should we have to call the meeting, we've at least gotten that done. Okay? Yes? All right. I do have some changes to them, Linda. In the, underneath the bold heading of 2025 draft budget, underneath the bullet that says fire, it says how the member reimbursement point system works was discussed. I'd like you to add that we lacked information regarding that. Committee lacks info, you can just put.
Yeah, we asked for clarification from Chief Brooks on that.
Right. 1, 2, 3 more lines down. Patriotic, it says patriotic purposed. It should say purposes. And then after where it says Schilling suggested an increase, the monument line, it should say an increase to the monument line of $100. And then in the paragraph underneath that started with Schilling noted, the second line that says Selectmen's meeting a recommendation to keep the budget level funded, I'd like it to make that say, Selectmen's meeting a recommendation from the committee. I don't want it to look like it was my recommendation, it was the committee's recommendation. And then under the 2025 draft warrant, the first bullet, at the end of it, add for a total taxpayer commitment.
Yes, that was that discussion we had where we want the total.
The total
The
number.
actual finance, total 7-year cost for the new road grader to be on the warrant article. So the taxpayers.
Well,
know
for
that.
any,
Yeah,
and then the only other change I had was on the second page under the health insurance and general budgetary guidance. Schilling extended the committee recommendation to the selectmen. Again, not my recommendation, the committee's recommendation. And those are the only changes I had.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any changes?
no.
Joy? Nope. No? Well, then entertain a motion to
Accept the-
approve?
Yeah,
Yeah.
accept the minutes as changed, as we discussed and Linda recorded.
a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
We'll do a roll call vote.
Oh, roll call, sorry, you got
That's
me.
right. Yep.
Joy, aye?
Sharon, aye.
Joe Dame, aye.
Rick? He
Aye.
said, thank you. Let the roll call vote reflect that it was a unanimous approval.
Oh, we're on minutes, you were gonna get me a couple comments for the last set of minutes.
The last thing.
You said there was 2 comments that you wanted them to add to the last set of minutes, and you're gonna get me those
Oh.
comments. So I haven't published those yet.
Okay, completely went out of my head.
I'm saying it out loud.
Yeah, right, okay, put a note. Last minute comments to Linda.
It was that last set in November.
Yeah, the December, oh no, November something minutes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
When do the department heads come and have conversations with you?
That'll probably happen in January. Obviously, it'll happen in January because we don't have another meeting this month, but
Well, they
we have to
won't
get.
come all at once, right?
No,
Yeah.
I don't think so. That'd be a very long meeting. That'd be the only thing we do that meeting,
Okay.
but once their budgets are further along.
Okay,
And once the selectmen have had a chance to either push back on them or accept
Okay.
what it is, then
so to be announced.
to be announced.
Thank you.
But look for it, obviously, in January, because we gotta be done. We take a vote when?
Let's see, what meeting do we vote on the budget?
At the hearing?
At the BOA?
At the budget hearing, you mean?
When we vote here on the budget
Budget
committee and send our recommendation to the select board, so you can put them on the warrant articles that says the,
That's at the budget hearing. Isn't it?
I thought we did it in a meeting here.
Did we? Yeah,
Isn't there a
I'm not
collaborative meeting between you and the selectmen when you do your votes the same night?
The budget hearing.
sure. The budget here,
Stop, sorry. Don't know why that's even ringing.
Usually you
may.
sit outright, Ron, am I right? You sit
Yeah,
beside
if I may, I served in the budget committee for 9 years. Typically, historically, traditionally, at the public hearing of the town
Right, oh,
budget,
yeah.
That's right.
ABC
Yes.
is there for that meeting, and following that meeting and input from the public, the ABC formally votes on those town warrant articles.
Right.
At the public hearing.
I always forget about the public hearing
Yeah.
because I always,
Like,
when I'm in that room, I always think I'm in the town meeting, so.
Right. And the same thing happens on the school side as well.
Right. Okay, and that's February,
I wanna say it's the second Tuesday in February, it's the 11th maybe?
Traditionally, the school has a public hearing in January.
the school
and
does, right?
The town budget, it has a formal town meeting or public hearing early February.
Early February.
Traditionally.
Yeah, and I think the school's deliberative session, as they call it, is January 6th.
Well, that's typically in February. That follows the public hearing. That's
Well,
independent
then
of
that,
the public hearing.
then that's their public hearing,
Yeah,
that is the 6th.
deliberative meeting is the formal voting. Okay, that's typically, traditionally, the first Monday in February thereabout, but that follows the public hearing in January for the school.
Right, and
Isn't this posted somewhere?
I don't know that it has been yet for this year.
Not for the budget hearing for the town, no, not, it hasn't been posted yet.
Okay.
Usually in January, I have to give notice, it's usually a couple of things in days in January, I put it in the paper and then so,
Yeah.
plenty of notice on a month or so.
Like I said, I do know that the school board is having a meeting on January 6th, so, about the budget. So that's probably their meeting.
That should be publicly announced as a formal public hearing.
I'm sure
Not a
they'll,
meeting, but a public hearing.
right, I'm sure they will do that very shortly. Yeah, it says right on their agenda, public hearing on the budget, January 6th, 2025 at 7 PM.
That makes sense.
Okay, that's done. Let's go back to the agenda. So much paper. Okay, approval, public comment. I do want to take a couple of these other things. I think I've already, item number 10 is the school board budget. I had hoped that Sarah DiMartino would be here. I did want to talk a little bit more and also give to the budget committee. Nope, that's mine. You can't have that one. You can have this one. This one.
Oh, this is from yesterday's meeting, that one.
You did
Okay.
get, okay. So this one, there's a couple here, a couple extra here, then if you'd like to have one. Rick, I will see if I can't get electronic of this. This is just what the school board proposed last night and what we were working from and talking about with regard to what the school board is. Like I said, at the meeting, they made a number of cuts and a number of adjustments as they were going through this, and the final tally at the bottom of the sheet was that it was a $7,426,938 for a 4.45% increase over last year's budget. The 2024-25 approved budget was 7.11 million. So you'll see that on page 19 of this sheet. Again, they are going back, they are sharpening their pencil, they are looking at more areas where they can either, cut and or seek grants for certain things.
Sharon,
Yes,
can I ask a question?
sure.
Since you were there and listened, can you quickly recap the major reasons for the 4.5% increase?
I would say that
Just very,
predominantly
what are
it's.
the major drivers?
Yeah, some of it's contract increases, not just like teacher contract increases. There are some of those. There are a number of those, but it's also, the cost for different contracts that they have. software contracts that have all increased. So, I mean, that, and then the two numbers where there might be some change. The numbers for what the town owes or what the school owes for students attending Conway or Kennett Middle and Kennett High School. Like I said, Kennett Middle, that cost went up significantly. The high school cost came down $100,000, but the middle school cost went up to $300,000.
It's probably
Now-
based upon student populations
It's only
from
20
this
in high
town.
school.
So as the student population increases those respective schools, the tuition will go up.
One thing that-
Numbers driven.
Yeah, one thing that happened this past year was sixth graders in other towns went into the middle school. Madison did not. Madison sixth graders stayed here. They did not go to the
Okay.
middle school, so.
Good, thank you.
But also, if you read in the paper, with the SAU having some of the issues that it's had with personnel, and especially in their finance department, they don't have this year's numbers. They're operating off of last year's numbers. So they've not actually updated it. So we expect, and the school board reiterated this, and so did Heather and Dr. Whalen, Heather Woodard, the principal, that next year's numbers will show a significant difference. We're hoping downward, because they'll have a chance to get all their numbers in a row and get everything done and get everything updated. They just have not been able to get things updated because they don't have the personnel. So we're operating off of old costs in order to reimburse them for students going there. So, yes, ma'am.
When the school budget is presented in writing, would you consider encouraging the school board to put the cost per pupil
Yeah.
in writing so that everybody could see? When we did the math at meeting last year, it was 34,000 per pupil. And I think that's helpful to see. I've asked Dr. Whalen, hopefully I'll remember to ask him again, he agreed, because it used to be considered in there, how many Madison students are not enrolled in any of our public schools. So I think that's a very important number. I mean, what if you looked at it and said, well, I'm paying 34,000 per pupil per year at 230, and then there's another whole 50 kids we're not paying a dime for. Just kind of like, it paints a better picture in my mind. So I'm hoping they add that back in. It used to be every year, it was in our book at the end of the year in the school book. How many go to Kennett, how many go to Madison L, and then how many are alternatively schooled because they're homeschooled or whatever. So I would love to see that number, the cost per pupil. Because I believe we did the math on the floor, is $34,995 last year per pupil.
So we're looking at about 130 students enrolled in schools here. I don't know how many.
230.
I'm sorry, 230.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't have a calculator to do 7.4 divided by
Right.
230. It'll be interesting
But I-
to see. I will when I leave here.
What I don't have any visibility of is the number of students who are enrolled in alternative programs.
Yeah, Dr. Whalen
So,
has that number and
He should,
he
right.
publishes it.
Dr. I would encourage you to reach out to them and do
I
the
am.
same thing, and I'll do the same thing. Okay, and I'll let them know that we have citizens who are looking for that number. It's important to them. Alternatively schooled. Okay. The other thing that they presented that they didn't talk about, but I brought copies of. Did you grab a copy of this? Their CIP?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Here's a copy of their capital improvement plan. This is their working copy, the thing that they're working on. Here's some extra copies if you're looking for it. In their warrant articles this year, they are looking for a total of $135,000 to go into this capital improvement plan, 50,000 of which would come from to be placed in the building capital reserve fund, and then 85,000 of it would come out of the June 30th unreserved fund balance, should there be an unreserved fund balance come June 30th. So they're not looking to raise all 135 via additional taxes. That 85 that comes out of the unreserved fund balance is the surplus, if you will, of money that doesn't get spent in a particular year. So, but they are looking to put $135,000 into that fund. If you'll notice when you're looking at their capital improvement plan, it goes out to the year 43, 40, and 44, which is a 20-year plan from now, which I think is good.
Yes.
That's gives you a good ballpark, because they're not gonna be exact numbers, especially that far out, but at least gives you an idea that if you have a brand-new generator today and you're gonna need to replace it, it should be in here somewhere, 10, 15, 20 years out, that there's a marker in there for it, that's when you're gonna have to replace it, and that you're leading up to that for the money to be available to replace it. So I encourage you to take a look at this, and if you have questions, talk to the school board. Again, they didn't specifically address this last night, but they did address it in a 10,000 foot level. And they think this year the 135 will be sufficient. And then they had 150,000 in the fund. That's their starting balance for this year. They'll add that 135. We'll give them $285,000 to be replacing things and working on different issues. And then the big piece of the warrant articles is that that the Madison School District adopt a school administrative unit budget of $1.4 million for the 25-26 school year, in which $498,184 is assigned to the school budget of Madison. Now this is that article that if it's not passed by the majority of voters in all the districts, then it goes to the default, SAU default budget. And that default budget would be $1.321 million, and Madison's portion of it would be $468,943, so about $30,000 less than what they're proposing.
And how much more is that over last year's amount?
It's $30,000, so it's
30,000 total
yeah.
from last year?
Yeah, for our portion of it, it's it's actually a little under 30,000, but it goes from 468 to 498, so that does represent probably about an 8% increase as opposed to 2 or 3 or 4%. And we didn't have time last night to get into, and I don't see, I think somewhere in here is the SAU's budget, so figuring out like what accounts for that 468 versus 498, what accounts for that $30,000. I haven't had a chance to digest yet, it was just last night, so but I think it would be important to understand what that is. Is that salaries? Is that additional positions? Is it health insurance increases? Is it all of the above? What does that $30,000 comprised of? And then they asked for $20,000 to be placed in a previously established special education capital reserve fund. That is the same, they asked for about $20,000 a year to go into that special reserve fund. They had talked about potentially moving that so that it comes from the fund balance and not taxation, the unreserved fund balance. I don't know if they voted on it or if they're just still taking it under advisement, but I would presume that this may not come from taxation, that this may just come from, if there's money left in the unreserved fund balance, the first $20,000 of that money will go into this special education capital reserve. And then whatever is left in there, hopefully $85,000 will go into the building capital reserve fund. And then the last warrant article, they had 9 warrant articles total. One of which is the negotiated agreements, which they don't have the wording for yet because they haven't finished. And one article was to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be placed in the previously established Madison Corner Schoolhouse Capital Reserve Fund. We the town taxpayers voted to put $25,000 in last year. They'd like to see another $25,000 go into it this year because that little red schoolhouse is not going away, and it still needs work, and it's dilapidating a little more every year, and so they're concerned that at some point there's going to be a huge need to fix it, and $25,000 isn't going to do it.
I'm also not sure if it's related or not, but lead was detected in not drinking water, but hand washing water in the school recently, and there is known lead. That's why they put a fence around the little red schoolhouse. So definitely needs to be taken
Was
care
that
of.
in the school building as well as the Little Redhead School?
The lead in the water was found in the elementary school, but in hand washing water, none of the
Right,
drinking water.
But not in the old schoolhouse, the old library, in the actual school.
I don't think it has water in there, I don't know. If
Okay,
it,
I
if
was
it,
just
yeah, if
so
it does,
in the
then-
school building.
yeah, in the school building. The Little Red Schoolhouse has lead paint, and that's,
Yeah.
that lead is leaching into the ground
Seeping,
around
yeah.
it, so they put the fence up to keep the kids away from it. So again, they may not be related at all, but either way, we have, how Little Red Schoolhouse needs to be taken care of.
Yes,
I
sir.
have a question. There was a move afoot to have a committee put together. They're asking for $25,000, that committee's a couple times, and I don't think we've been done with that, they decided which way they were gonna go.
The committee is, there is a committee, okay, that's all I know. There is a committee. I know that they have still, I don't think they've ever decided, because there was a discussion about moving the schoolhouse off the property. There was discussion about just bulldozing the thing and remediating the soil. There was discussion about rehabbing it and refurbishing it, so at least getting the lead out of it, and then, you know, leaving it where it is. I don't know that committee has made any decision or recommendation yet.
One thing that they did do was they put in for the New Hampshire 7 to Save preservation grants. It was not chosen to be the 7 to Save. I think they're gonna try to do it again, and keep trying to do it until we can get, you know, grants based on that, so.
Until there are no others to save except us.
They are doing things, they are trying and
They are,
looking
yeah.
into funding, so.
One of the more significant warrant articles, I believe, is the last one, which would rescind the provisions of RSA 40:13, known as SB2, to allow official ballot voting on all issues before the school on the second Tuesday of March, requiring a 3/5 majority ballot vote at that time. So basically what this amounts to is that instead of the school budget being a ballot item when we go to vote before town meeting, that they have their own voting, that you go in and vote for it. Part of the issue that they're experiencing is that with people not showing up to the deliberative session, that they have just a handful of folks, that then most people believe, well, regardless of what happens in any of these other sessions, if I go in and I vote on the Tuesday when we have town vote, that's when really what will determine the school budget, whether it be a default budget or whatever budget they're going to recommend or you know they recommended. They believe that this method, having their own vote, this method, and you can change things on the floor just like we do. It's basically almost like a second town meeting that they have on a Tuesday night, and everything would get voted on then. Every line would be open for discussion and debate and change on the floor right there. And whatever you come out with that night at the end of the night, that's the school budget and the warrant articles.
The downside to that is that people that are not present, you cannot absentee ballot. Okay? So it's only the people present at that meeting, just like it is for the town
Town
budget.
meeting, right.
They determine the fate of everybody else in town for the next year. The same things, if that's approved, then it's only the people at that meeting determine the fate of the school budget for the coming year.
Same with the town.
But it
I was
used,
gonna say it's the
agree,
same
but I
with
mean,
the town,
You have to
right?
understand that
Oh,
there's
yeah.
no absentee voting,
Right,
okay, no ballot voting if they go to that method.
right.
it was like that years ago. I
Yes.
don't know if you've been in town that
No.
long, but I was in town back then, and I was a teacher the whole time. And it's frustrating because of what he said, you know, that's a possibility. But there was a lot more input, like, as to what actually was gonna happen. And people were a lot more informed before their vote.
Yes.
A lot more informed, and that does make a difference. Of course, if you're not gonna be in town that day when the meeting's scheduled, you don't have any input, but it did give people, because I've stopped going, but I used to go to the deliberative session all along, and there really was maybe 10 of us there. And these people, you know, and so I would bring up my concerns, and I was the only one bringing them up, you know, and a lot of times it's the parents, the others are parents that are there.
There are
it's hard.
definitely pros and cons
Yes,
to
there are.
both ways. And I think what they're looking for is, right now, it's an either-or situation. It's either vote, you know, you either vote for what the 7.4 million is, say, and if you vote no on that, then it automatically defaults back to the 7.1 million from last year. There's no ability to manage and negotiate, if you will, from the floor, a change in that 7.4 million to come up with 7.2 million. You're either 7.4 or 7.1, and there's nothing in between. So I think they have some concern about that being the way that it's done. But that being said, then, again, it requires that the town participate. And I think that that's one of the things that has not been happening in the last decade, is that there is not as much participation, there's not as much desire to understand and know, what does all of this mean? What does it mean for the taxpayer? What does it mean for our tax rate? And, you know, are we now gonna be 60% of our tax bill, it goes to the school? Or is it only gonna is it gonna go down to 45 or 48 or 50%?
Right. But also too, that town meeting format, if the town decides to go to that for the school, the town meeting format allows you to change almost anything.
Yes.
On those warrant articles.
Yes.
From A to Z.
Yes.
A deliberative meeting, you are limited as what you can change on that warrant article proposal. You've got a lot of restrictions on the SB2. You've got very minimal restrictions
Right.
on a town meeting format. Again, there's pluses and minuses. The downside is you've got to be there.
And I think that that's where, if this is on the ballot come March, if this is on the ballot, then I think it's incumbent upon those people who understand those differences to stand up, speak about it, educate the people who are there so that they understand when they're voting for something what they're actually voting for, and or encourage people to come to the meetings where these things get discussed. Okay, it's the school board meeting that they need to attend. They hear about it from us here, and we can talk about it, but to change it and have any kind of effective change to this, you have to go to the school board meetings. Yes?
Donna Vegu, I recall when we had that transition and how it evolved was very little participation at town meeting. I've been to town meetings when there were 50 people. And often it was special interest. Who could do anything they wanted to on the budget. And they did. Hence, we have SB2. So, pros and cons.
Pros and cons.
Yep.
Yes, yes. Okay. Anyway. Yes, ma'am.
As a wife of a teacher in another town, they do that.
They do that? They do it this way? The way that they're proposing?
And the budget went up over what they were asking for, because somebody would make a motion and it would pass.
So there's always that possibility too.
That's true. I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
It could go up.
It could go anywhere it wants.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's just a motion from the floor.
Well, it depends on who is in the room.
That's
At
what
the
it
time.
It does, it's
Well,
true.
and that's where, you know, it's incumbent upon people to talk to your neighbors, get them energized about this, because in the end, it all comes out in that tax bill that the poor tax collector upstairs has to send to people to say that it's $15.77 per thousand, and you get that, you know, and gotta pay it in July and December. It's incumbent upon you to go to these meetings and voice your opinion and understand and ask questions so that your concerns and your issues are addressed. It's really important. Okay.
Okay, next.
Anything else about the school budget?
Next topic.
Next topic. Let's move on. All right. School budget. We talked about, number 11, we talked about health insurance, that the selectmen voted to increase the employee participation from 5% to 7%. So there's a 2% increase there. Linda, from the, I don't know if we should take, I want to ask you what time you think you have to leave. Do you want to do the CIP first, or do you want to do the draft budget and warrant? Has there been much work on the draft budget and warrants?
On the budget, there was a few things that got changed.
Okay,
I think the short answer on the CIP is that Linda has sent out the CIP draft to all the department heads with the request that their updates be delivered in Mondays or by Monday's select board meeting.
Scheduled to meet by the end of the week, so I can.
by the end of this week, so you can include it for Monday?
It'll be in next week.
Yeah.
You'll send them to me and I'll update this week probably.
Okay, so we can expect to see sort of an updated CIP for the next meeting,
I hope
Hopefully.
more information.
right? Fingers crossed.
Did you want to send it to me to do over the weekend? Plug in the updates?
Yeah, I don't have a working copy, so.
Okay.
Okay,
And then
then
the
do we
other,
wanna,
yeah, just the other CIP, yes, we talked CIP, and then just the changes to the warrant. Like we mentioned, the roads have been reduced by 100,000. The planning board had proposed a $100,000 budget warrant article to
Can you-
update the town's master plan.
which article number are you talking about?
It was it's in between 8 and 9. It's been crossed off, so it's unnumbered.
Oh, right, okay. So
yep,
that's been removed,
that has been removed
okay.
by the select board. There can still be a petition to put it back in. But the select board made the decision to remove it. The Conservation Commission, they changed one of their warrant articles. Traditionally, annually, they ask for $5,000 in taxation to be put into the capital
For land
reserve fund
acquisition.
for land acquisition and such.
They
So-
removed that.
They removed that because they're actually taking from the capital reserve fund for a lawyer for the chain of ponds easement to be reviewed. So they're actually not raising money for that, and they're not raising money for the 5,000 that they would normally put back in. So they're working within they've cut that out of it. They did add some warrant articles because they wanted to offer a scholarship for students to go to conservation summer camps. They're going to put that into the budget, but that, because it's taxpayer money that you're donating, it has to be a warrant article, and taxpayers have to specifically approve that kind of activity. So that's, I think, $500. And still have the forest maintenance. And then, yeah, I think that was the Conservation Commission trying to cut some money. Originally, we thought that the new police cruiser was going to be in the $80,000 range. Chief Hayford let us know that would be $63,000 instead. So a couple things have come down. I think those are the significant changes.
Okay, when I had last totaled, I'd have to go back and retotal this now with these new numbers. When I had last totaled the warrant articles, it was 1.6 million. I'm, with it coming down $100,000 for the,
200,000,
yeah,
And
at
the,
least $200,000,
exactly.
210
yeah.
or
We're
so.
still at 1.3, 1.4.
Correct, which is, last year the warrant articles were $667,000, and now we're at 1.4, say.
And the following year is when they're anticipating $2 million for dam repairs on the warrant. So again, as Nicole mentioned, grants,
Grants.
We have to.
Yeah.
because there is a $166,000 warrant this year for a study on the dam to see what's the best way to engineer it and all that. And then the $2 million the following year would be to actually do the repairs.
I've done some unofficial research on the dam repair cost, because that's kind of what I do, I like to dig into the numbers and see what a real cost in 2026 and 27 will be. And the estimate I had from the American Association of Dam maintainers.
Those damn.
Those dams. It was about 2.8 million, almost $3 million for a dam of the size at the end of Silver Lake. That dam was built in 1926, our current dam, and it's degrading every year. And I heard the $2 million, and I thought that cost estimate might be a little low. So I tried to pull out some real engineering numbers of similar projects. It's about 2.875.
So we'll know more when the engineering study is done.
After the engineering study's done, yeah.
Does the state have any responsibility
Yeah,
for,
it's gotta be grant money.
right, I mean.
I'm not sure, I haven't
grant money,
looked.
It's their lake,
There's gotta be grant money.
Bingo.
it's their lake, if it drains, what do they,
I believe this came up, I was at the Board of Selectmen meeting when this came up. The dam is not considered critical by the state, and I pulled up the rankings and I looked at it. If that dam fails, it will not endanger life or property, right? It's gonna drain down to Ossipee, but the lake level will drop about 8 feet, Joy, I think it
Yes,
says.
that was the
7, 8
estimate.
feet.
7, 8 feet, which will lower the property values of everybody around, because it's a recreational
No,
lake.
I
Yeah.
understand.
So,
I've seen
I don't
it.
know where we can go with grants, or I haven't even looked at that.
People should pay for it.
The people that use the lake should pay.
No, I don't know,
That
but
was a joke.
That's the townspeople, and that's what we're looking at.
I think-
But I mean,
yeah.
so it's 100%
Yeah.
responsibility of the town of
I
Madison
can't imagine.
that's
to
what,
repair that dam.
I went to the state
Is that-
website and looked up the dam number, and I had sent it to Linda a while ago too. And it says right on there, owner, town of Madison, we're responsible for the maintenance, repair,
100%.
replacement of that
The
dam.
state has no responsibility for
Not from
maintaining
what I
that
saw on their website,
dam.
they,
Okay,
I
I'm just
know,
curious.
yeah.
How
Yes,
much
ma'am.
does the lake get lowered in the winter?
I'm not sure in the
About
code,
a foot and a half.
Just a foot and a half?
Yeah, not much.
yeah.
On the warrant, I don't know where the selectmen's $7,000 salary is under here.
It's in the budget,
Where about,
it's in the operating budget.
executive line.
executive line? Has there been any discussion about, we will be having 5 selectmen? And the reason the selectmen today make $7,000, which is substantially more than surrounding towns, is because they had more work. They're gonna have less work. So I was wondering if there's been any conversation about revisiting that $7,000 figure.
It was just mentioned that it would go to town meeting and folks would be able to, I mean, come to the select board meetings and talk about it beforehand while we're having these budget discussions for sure.
Well, has there been any discussion here on this making a recommendation to the selectmen, like you often do?
No, we've not discussed that predominantly because, well, I've not brought it up and neither has anyone else, but I suspect that there isn't going to be less work. There's going to actually be more work between the dam and PFAS and some of all the other issues that the town is facing over the next 5 years. That I suspect that those 5 selectmen will be busier than they have been, and or should potentially be busier if in my opinion they're doing their job correctly, then they're paying attention, they're actually managing those things that they should be managing. It's very difficult right now when you only have 3 people, but when you have 5 you can get more done. You don't have less work, you just have more people to do more work. The work won't go away, it'll still stay there. So we're adding 2 additional people to the tune of $14,000 a year. Do we think that that's value added? I'm okay with it, but if there's other people who don't think that
No, I was just
yeah.
wondering if there's been any discussion.
Yeah, and I've not checked what other town
Okay.
selectmen make in
I'm not
like
sure.
neighboring towns, Ossipee, any of those other kinds of towns, Tamworth, any of that, so
And it will be prorated because they don't officially start until
March,
end of
whatever.
March, so it's prorated too.
You have the detail there in that file, Donna. If you go into this sheet here, it'll tell you exactly
On
how much
page
is in
5.
that line.
One,
It's on page 5.
one comment that came up last, and I haven't seen a change in the updated here, Article 6. It is The town is leasing, buying a new road grader. And it says it's $377,500 here. In the warrant article for approval by the voters, the actual cost over 7 years is $473,000. And I asked if that could be presented in the warrant article so the taxpayers knew the exact cost of what they were voting for.
When we were going through the comments and we were looking at the minutes, one of the comments that I made for updating the minutes had to do with this particular warrant article. So in order for the townspeople to understand the complete tax liability over the 7 years, we asked that the total cost, not the $377,500 is what the town paid for, the contract price, I guess.
That's how much we leased.
That's the
Yeah,
but
the
that
lease,
doesn't
sorry.
include the interest payments
No,
over
correct.
7
That
years.
doesn't-
And I was looking for the total cost.
Right,
When we
What
got
it actually writing checks for.
right. So when
Isn't it
you,
usually included
I don't know,
It-
that's
it
why I
has
asked for
not.
clarification.
it has not.
in past?
In the past, it has not.
Well, it
But if
must
you
be
take the
somewhere in
six,
the budget though.
oh yeah, it is. It's in the
But-
budget. So, and if
Yeah.
you take the 67,600 and
Okay.
multiply it by 7,
Okay.
you get the true number of what the
What the
impact
cost is.
to the taxpayer
It might
is.
be under notes,
Yeah.
notes too.
But the interest
Notes
rate
do,
on
yeah.
that
It's
is
not recorded in notes.
is
Yeah.
5.99%
For
for
next year,
7
yeah.
years.
Not for 2025
Right.
because you have it as a warrant article, but then.
Right.
Yeah.
so
Then
in
after that.
2026
But then
the
it shows
warrant
the
is due.
actual cost.
No, I think that's a good idea. Transparency.
No, I'm just trying to understand the full cost,
Yeah.
right? Because if you and I go out to buy a car,
Right.
a $40,000 car, I'm really paying $50,000 over the
I
5-year
totally
lease
agree.
period, with the interest rate. I'm writing checks every month based on 50K.
But I also understand from Linda's standpoint that there are certain ways that you must
Yeah.
word these RSAs. And so if we're not able to do that because the state statute says this is the way you do it, then that's the way we have to do it. What I would then suggest is that as we're at town meeting and we're discussing each one of these, then probably from the budget committee standpoint, we will bring up the fact that if you multiply the 67.6 by the 7 years, you're gonna get 473, not 377. There's an additional almost $100,000.
That bothers me that the taxpayer has to do math to understand, before we vote on it.
Well,
We should know the cost up front.
If the warrant article has to be worded a specific way.
Right.
No.
You address that, period, and then you continue on.
Right, but it's important that the taxpayer understands
You
the
would
full
continue
extent.
on with that
Yeah,
information.
no, I know that.
On
Yeah.
the warrant. And
Well,
That's
that's what
why-
I'm saying.
Yeah.
If we can't put it in here because of the way that
The way-
we're forced to do it by the state, then it'll get brought up as we're discussing the article. It'll get brought up and, when the article comes up for a vote, there's always a discussion about these articles and we'll bring to the table
My
the fact.
point is that you can abide by the state's mandate, write the warrant article as they tell you to, that you must, and then just put an addendum on that.
That's what I'm
You
saying.
can't-
I don't
I'm
know
not
that
sure
you
what
can
we
do.
can do.
They
Yeah, I'm
won't
not
let
sure.
you do that?
I don't know that you can.
I don't know. Linda
Linda's
was
gonna.
gonna look into it for us. I know, poor Linda.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah.
I did say that it would be up to the selectmen how they want it written, and
Yeah.
then it would be presented to DRA for approval
Mhm.
as the way it's written. So-
Yes, sir.
Mr.
I'd
Forrest.
like to make a public statement about the grader. We're voting on something we already have on hand, which is not typically the way that the process is supposed to work. I know the selectmen, because I worked in the budget committee for 9 years, they got a tough job. I know that. But on this particular issue, I am personally disappointed at how this was handled. And you now put the taxpayer in a very difficult position. And I personally do not support this warrant article, because if we do, we have set a legal precedence for a future select board to do the same thing again, because we set a precedence. I know it's painful, because we're gonna still take money out of pocket, because the machine is on site. So, but I think it's a lesson learned for the town and for the selectmen if we disapprove this article this year and go about the right process to get a grader. I know we need one, but we bought a Rolls-Royce grader. We only need a well-built Chevy grader. So we've got almost a $500,000 piece of equipment that the selectmen have already bought. And now they're asking the town people, after the fact, to pay for it. And so there was no discussion, no transparency. And again, the selectmen do a wonderful job on most of their items. They work hard. But on this particular item and this process, I'm disappointed. And it's
There was a public hearing.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
What?
There was a public hearing specifically about the grader. So I just want to make sure that, I mean, there was a lot of discussion in select board meetings, in budget meetings.
Oh.
Joe did 3 different
No, we spent a
reports.
long time on
Yeah.
this. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I struggled so hard with that decision. It was so hard for me because I could see, you know, different sides of it and really, really, I think visibly struggled because it took me a minute, you know, to say what my vote was gonna be. And I have not asked the other board members, but I very much want the DPW to be developing Plan B, C, and D. Because the voters have every right to say, nope, there is an escape clause, and the voters have every right to use that escape clause and say no. So I have not asked yet, but I do want to ask the board if we can make sure the DPW does have backup plans if the voters choose to move forward with
So you're
not voting it
suggesting
in.
another warrant article in case
Nope.
this fails?
No,
Nope, I'm just asking I'm gonna ask if the DPW can keep shopping, keep looking, keep coming up with
But
Options.
if we have
Other
to send
options.
this back,
Yes.
the voters choose not to support this.
it will be repossessed by
Let her
Caterpillar,
finish,
yes.
Right. Shouldn't there be a follow-up warrant article that suggests, say that fails, to provide funds for a new grader?
That's an option.
It's an option.
I mean, if not, we're sending this back and we'll be without a grader.
Yes.
Part of the reasoning for that grader was the smoking hot deal that we got on it at the time. You couldn't get that grader now for that amount of money. And it wasn't that they chose that particular Cadillac of a grader, that was what was available. They're in short supply. It was a really, really good deal, and that's why it was jumped on.
I did a full cost analysis on that, and so I'm knee deep into this thing, so
If you went with-
blame me.
If you went
Um,
with Plan B at town meeting, you're not gonna get another grader for under
But-
$500,000.
We just need to be prepared if the
And-
voters say
and-
no.
But,
I'm sorry.
and you wait a year and a half to get it.
Right, and I think that that's part of the discussion that has to be
Right.
had
Okay.
when this comes to the table, when this comes up. All of those concerns, like here's all the information that was presented at the time that the decision was made. Here were the options, here were the time critical decisions that had to be made. Here were the things that could have been done, but weren't. And then, we chose they did consult with the town attorney,
Yes.
who said that they had the ability to do this. They had the ability to buy it out of.
They have the
Yeah,
authority.
to enter, yes, they had the authority to enter into the contract and then wait and get approval from the townsfolk at town meeting. So to your point of it establishing a precedent, the precedent's already there. The precedent is that you're able to do that legally. Do you want to do that fiscally, and do you want to do that with your taxpayers' acknowledgement? Probably
Maybe
not
not.
too many times, otherwise you're probably not going to be in office for very long. But I think, there are a number of issues, and this is, as Joy said, this was not an easy decision.
No.
And Joe, in his last report that he did, the conclusion was that based on 1 million factors that he went into and researched and looked into, his final analysis was that renting, in his analysis, would have been the way to go.
No, and I put a lot of
It's
effort
tough.
in it.
Yeah, you did
I-
3 different reports.
We believe me, we did due diligence on this.
Yeah.
I dug deep into, I did full cost comparisons, I did market surveys, and as Linda pointed out, we paid $419,000 for a $500,000 grader. And the reason that grader had been ordered by Milton Caterpillar for another customer, it was in production, and the order was canceled, or something fell through. And these things take 18 months or so to actually get one, right? They're built to order. And Milton Cat came in, gave a good deal. We did go back several times, and we made sure that we had the extended Caterpillar warranty and the service plan. That was a big concern we brought up, is how are we gonna maintain this machine? $500,000 road grader. And we did make sure we had the extended plan, that type of thing. At the last meeting, Joy referenced, the final, we offered multiple options. We looked at fixing the old grader, which, yeah, could we get another couple of years out of it? It needed probably another $8,000 or $10,000 in repairs. The cooling system's failing, the heat exchanger was failing for the engine oil, hydraulic lines were blowing out. It was a mess.
I don't wanna
I don't wanna
make
get
this
into all the
meeting
details,
about
yeah.
rehashing
Yeah.
whether or not we should have
Right.
bought a grader.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is I agree that the taxpayer is now in a position of their back a little bit against the wall because it's a decision that has already been made, and now the taxpayer has to fund that decision. What are the repercussions if we, as a taxpayer, decide not to fund that? I think that we have to make sure that the selectmen and whoever else, I would think Josh Shackford, the head of DPW, because he's probably gonna have to answer some of the questions, that they need to have a robust book of knowledge as to all of the ins and outs of this, what happens, how it happens, why this was the best deal for us to do in order to convince our townsfolk that they're gonna vote for this. Rick has a
Oh,
question.
Rick's,
Yeah.
Just a comment, the other thing that we kind of lost sight of here is that grader is gonna take care of almost 50% of the roads in our community. About half of our roads are dirt, and that's where the grader comes in, so.
So we have 26 miles of dirt gravel road in town. It's 52 miles of grading because you got to go down and back.
Back and forth, right.
So you got 52 miles worth of grading that has to happen. And so this grader can do that much faster than the previous grader could. There is some issue about it being much heavier than the other grader was, but then you're gonna have to trust that these guys know how to operate it and will do the right thing. Rick had
Rick is
another
back,
comment.
yeah.
I just think one other factor is it is a grader that can plow. It was designed for
Yes.
plowing snow. And
Yeah, I think it has a 12-foot plow.
Has a Craig wing plow on it,
Yeah,
yeah.
so,
great plow.
Yeah,
I guess my concern is not necessarily that the town needs a grader. I think we all understand
Absolutely.
that.
oh, definitely.
It's the process, it's the transparency.
yes.
That's not typically how we do business in this town when we buy a major piece of equipment.
Correct.
That's my point.
Yes, absolutely.
No, I
And I agree.
fully agree.
Which is
Okay.
why
And
we,
so it's
the-
not the grader itself, it's how the process and the transparency to the taxpayers. I know you had a public meeting, but it wasn't discussed at the town meeting when you have 100 or so people there, and they haven't bought the piece of equipment yet. We're talking about buying a piece of equipment.
right.
So we went around a different process this time. That's my concern. And it was a large purchase.
That's one of the reasons why we here on the committee have been so adamant about updating the CIP, because that grader was 40 years old. Having an updated CIP that's attended to every single year will hopefully allow us to foresee that, you know what, we bought this grader in 2024, we're gonna have to probably replace it in 2034, say.
34,
So 10 years.
that's when I would.
So now we need to make sure that we're planning for its obsolescence and its replacement.
I agree with
10 years from now.
Yeah,
And it
CIP is
doesn't
a
come
great
up.
management tool. I
Right.
agree with that, absolutely.
This came up as a, like you said, this came up like, okay, we want to replace it and we want to replace it now, right now. And so now we're in a position where, you know, we have a good deal, we need to jump on it. Well, if you're planning ahead and you are planning for 10 years to replace it, you won't necessarily be in that position. Fingers
No,
crossed.
and I-
Things happen, and
Yeah.
they might, but
I fully agree with Ron. We were in a very reactionary mode, not the budget committee, but everybody involved in this. Instead of being proactive, that original, the 1987 grader should have been, scheduled for replacement 20 years ago. And we kept band-aiding it, and it reached a point where it failed. And we were stuck, and we couldn't get a machine.
Yeah, I had gone back
Yeah.
through Old Town reports to just kind of see the
Yeah.
history of it, and it was definitely, well, we know that's gonna be a huge expense. We
Push it
repaired it
down.
enough
We
to
kept
make it.
kicking it down the road.
But it wasn't properly used in the CIP.
Correct.
Which
Yes.
prevented this from even happening in the first place.
correct,
So
which is,
on a related note, I was asked as selectman's rep to go to the select board and say we would like to have the CIP working group again, planning board, BOS, budget committee. Planning board has admittedly not wanted to touch the CIP for a while, they have a lot on their plates. It went to the select board admittedly hadn't kept it updated. So it was agreed that a working group could be formed, not an official meeting. And it was just working on a spreadsheet. It actually ended up being the three of us, put the spreadsheet together. And as a result of those conversations, the select board put a warrant on for an official CIP committee again.
Great,
So-
that's good news.
yes.
My final comment is that I read all your research, Joe, and hats off to you. But I would have voted for lease, just out of respect for the process. But maybe the deal was so good, that was secondary. So, not.
You mean
not
rent?
to- Huh?
You mean
Or
rent?
Rent,
We are
we are
leasing this
leasing
one.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
The new grader we have now is a lease.
Yeah, I meant rent, yeah. Out of respect for the process, given, allowing the voters to have a choice. But
It-
maybe it was such a good deal and, you don't
I
know
know.
all the facts and figures and so that's just my final.
I went to the Board of Selectmen meeting where it was actually voted for, that Joey referenced. And I tried to present a very unbiased, factual options.
You did, I was at
Yeah.
that meeting.
And going, fix, rent, lease, type thing. And what the costs were, annual costs per each, and that type of thing. So that at least an informed decision could be made, by the Board of Selectmen. And as Joy say, I know, everybody put a lot of thought into that, and we were really trying to do the best we could for the taxpayer in the town. The advantage, I have followed up on the road grader with the DPW. I just want to see, how's it going? They're doing a lot more roads, a lot faster and high quality. And the issue now is it's no longer a DPW issue. It's reverted to the police department, Chief Hayford. Because the roads are so good, people are flying down North Division, even the school buses. And people are because the roads, the DPW, this grader is very capable and it does a great job. It is, as Ron pointed out, it's a premium machine. But that old grader just wasn't up to the task. And now they're doing a lot more road and actually at a lower cost, right? There's less labor, less fuel. We're not fixing this machine. It comes with the CAT maintenance and everything. So, again, I tried to look at all of the operating costs of this. And as Rick pointed out, that price, it came with the Craig mounts for the existing plows we have. So now, when we get big storms, the DPW can push the banks back. It has the big side blade on it. It's a four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, actually, six-wheel drive. So they can move, heavy snow and stuff with it. So that was one of the, I think the selling points was that it was a multi-purpose, machine, multi-seasonal.
I do have to leave
Okay,
you
so-
shortly, but I did want to bring
I hope
attention to
I don't
that.
know, did we address your
Right.
Yes, you did.
concerns?
Thank you.
Okay.
Nicole?
I just have one quick thing because it keeps coming up in everything you guys are saying, and I just want to point this fact out when Sharon recommends that we ask questions,
Mhm.
okay? What we're told doesn't turn out to be the truth sometimes. because we were told to dump a ton of money into the old grader, and we were gonna get another 15 years. We were told to buy a Chevy pickup for the police department, and we were gonna keep it twice as long as the Ford. And it's already been sold and we still owed money. So I'm just saying, that's the frustrating part for the taxpayer. We can ask and ask and ask, and it can all get explained away how badly we need these things. But bottom line, at some point, we have to say, we just can't afford it, we don't, no matter what your reason is. I was told we could borrow Idlewise's grader. So, and they have a brand new one. I'm just saying.
I didn't, no, to Nicole's point, I didn't look at borrowing, another
Yeah.
town or.
Renting it,
or
borrowing it,
I looked at
whatever, but I'm
Bert-
just saying,
okay.
we're encouraged to ask questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I've been in these meetings for 20 years and I've asked questions, and what ends up playing out, we were told something different.
Then that's, I
You know
think
what I mean?
then,
So it's hard to even look at it and go, well, I'm gonna ask this or that. You know what, sometimes I just gotta look at this and go, we can't afford this, no matter what your reason is. And that's what I'm asking to keep in the back of everything's head. Because it ends up sometimes not being true. I'm not happy, I agree with Ron on everything he said. And then furthermore, that we bought this Cadillac Grader and we leave it outside.
Because it won't fit in the garage.
I know, I'm just saying.
It's too big.
If we're gonna buy it, let's keep it for 60 years in a garage. You know,
don't, because then they want to
to.
build a garage over it.
Yeah, no,
You know,
I know.
whatever, I'm just saying, that's my frustration as a taxpayer.
And mine.
I don't wanna ask questions because I don't know what the answer is right.
I will tell you, probably the word that comes out of my mouth the most often is unsustainable.
Yes,
The
Yeah, it's
trajectory
not
for this is
sustainable.
unsustainable, I agree.
Not purchasing vehicles the way we are, not sustainable. Purchasing equipment the way we are, not sustainable.
I hear you.
I still have a
And I-
headache over this road grader, believe me, I must have
And I do
200 hours into
appreciate
this
you, but
thing.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
this is the other genre
Yeah.
that seems to go on.
Right, and
You
so-
know, I've been explained that we dumped a 25,000 or 35,000 into the old grader, that's gonna get us 15 years, and 5 years later, it's gone, you know, like.
Nicole, no, I don't know if it answers your question. I actually went to Caterpillar
Yeah,
and found out what the life cycle costs on these machines were.
I know.
How many hours will that transmission last? How long? And the 87 Cat was already in the 80, 90th percentile of where Cat says
Mm-hmm. And we
it's
know the way
worn
they
out.
make stuff.
And all of the
Yeah.
parts were wearing out. All the systems were wearing out on that machine.
Nobody
understand.
disagrees that we
Yeah.
needed to replace the grader.
Okay, I want to change the subject for a minute before Selectman Joy leaves. I'd like to make another statement too, and this is based upon years of experience as well. My concern, and it ties back to what Nicole talked about earlier, and that is if you look at the average salaries and wages of the folks that live in the town and so forth, and what they typically get for annual cost of living increases and so forth. But when the town tax rate increases at a faster pace than what the people are earning, for, when you talk about 4, 5, 6% increases in your tax rate, you are taking a bigger chunk out of everyone's disposable income, more and more and more every year. My concern as a taxpayer, and my concern as many years on the budget, is we have got to be back in line with what this gentleman was talking about earlier today. And that is, you look at the inflation rate, you look at the average wage increases in the area, and you cap our budgets for both the school and the town at that level, because it makes it affordable for us taxpayers. But when you go beyond that, you take away money out of their disposable income. You literally take food off the table, or their ability to fix the holes in their roof, whatever it is. That's my number one concern about what's happening right now, and that's why I'm here tonight.
ditto, yeah.
And I hear you, and I have the same opinion, especially since the population in this community is not, not 30 to 38. It's not the average population. The average population is probably 55 and above. And many of people, including me, are on a fixed income now, where you've retired and you're not working, and so you're not getting pay increases. What you're getting is your Social Security increase or your or your annuity increase, your retirement increase. I'm a military retiree, so we do get a cost of living increase. It's 2%. It's a 2% increase. A town budget that goes up by 4.5%, or a school budget that goes up by 4.5% now eats an additional percentage
Yeah.
out of that income that I need to use, not just for my taxes, but now I need to use it for my health care. I need to use it for my, for cost of living, like my heat and my propane and my fuel for my car, my insurance on my house. All those things all are going up. And the only one, I don't want to say that we can control, but the only one that we have a direct effect on, besides shopping around for other things, is holding the town budget, which is why this committee went to the selectmen and said, hold the budget level.
Right.
Or
Thank you.
decrease it by 2 to 3%. Okay? It's now important for us to make sure that then if that's what the town wants, then the town has to say that very strongly to the selectmen. And they've got to start now so that the selectmen can then go back to their department heads and say, you know what, we got to tighten the belt. We got to find where we can either, I don't want to say do without, but where we can walk back this things that we want to things that we need. What do we absolutely need to run the town? There's a danger in that if you do it for too long, in that you don't have the things, you don't have the income coming in that you can use to refurbish things and invest in your infrastructure, invest in your programs. So you have to be careful. You can't do it too long. But for the near term, then yes, you can. It can be done for the next year, 2, 3, 4, even 5 years. But the selectmen control that. So you have to make that voice known to the selectmen. And we have to hold them accountable. If they say to us, if we put $25,000 into this grader, it'll last us another 5 years, and then they turn around 3 years later and want to sell it, we have to be vocal about, no, you're not going to sell it.
Yeah.
You told us we were going to, if we invested in this, we were going to hold it. So now you're going to have to hold it. You have to hold it and plan to replace it in another 2 years. If they bought a new car, a new truck, and then all of a sudden it's not the truck that we wanted, sorry, you're going to have to hold on to it until it's at least paid off, and then you can put in the, a warrant article to purchase a new vehicle down the line.
I would say that the number one talent you would look for in a department head is the ability to stay in and cut budgets when the selectmen direct them to do it.
Absolutely.
That's a talent that they should bring to the table as a department head. That's as their response. That, in my opinion, that should be your number one ability. If you interview for it as a department head, you should be like, are you good at staying in your budget? Are you good? And if I come to you and say you need a flat line or cut, you're good with that. You always work within that. Yep. And that should be in an interview process.
You need to say that to the selectmen because they're the ones who interview for that. Yeah.
But
We can advise them of those things.
Right.
But I don't think the cuts should be arbitrary.
No.
They should be linked to something common sense, like this gentleman talked about earlier. What's happening to our society right now? Where are people in our town with their incomes and so forth? So just adjust the budget accordingly to the population that you're serving. That's what it's all about. Not just say, I want you to cut it to zero. Why? Just because I want you to.
Because I don't want to pay for it.
That doesn't make any sense either.
No.
Because we have services that we want, okay? So I'm imploring the selectmen as of tonight to do what we talked about at the beginning of the meeting with this gentleman, okay? And cap the budget at what our citizens in this town can afford today for this year.
And one thing that I don't like the idea of, every department needs to cut 10%.
I agree.
I think to me that is almost arbitrary.
No, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You should look at the big picture.
Yeah.
The big picture, and they have the authority to pick and choose what it's all about. I said this 100 times while I was on the budget committee. Prioritize your needs. Prioritize. If you have 10 items, you don't put 10 on the list. You maybe put 7 or 6. If you prioritize, and all the departments prioritize, you can make this happen.
Mr. Force, you were a budget committee member. Would you be interested? We have open positions. Would you be interested in sitting on the budget committee?
He's really good at it.
I have the, well, let me check with Linda. I have the authority to appoint someone to an open position, correct?
According to the ordinance,
Yeah.
I will take an alternate position between now and March.
Well, you'd have to rerun in March anyway, wouldn't you?
No, but
You'd have to- if
I'll
it's
see
for-
how it goes between now and March. If our selectmen and our school come up with some reasonable budgets that are affordable for the taxpayer, I'm all for it, and I'll give them 100% of my support.
Okay.
I'll be an alternate until March and then decide at that point
Okay.
what to do.
Perfect.
You're
Thank
on the
you.
board. What else do I need to do, Linda? Does he just have to get sworn in by the select?
Out to dinner.
You have to,
Oh, on this board? On this board?
Yes.
Oh,
I think you have to vote.
No,
No.
we,
no?
no,
As the chairman, I have the ability to appoint him,
that's right.
so I don't need to vote, which, if I did, I wanted to do it now too,
Yeah.
since we still
Since
have
we're
the
here.
quorum. Yeah, but yes, I would love for you to sit on
Thank you,
the board, on the committee again.
thank you.
So-
Any other
and help
takers while
us.
we're in the room?
Yeah, Mr. Dempster? No?
More openings.
Nicole?
No? Anyone? Anyone out in TV land? So, get in touch with me, let me know. So, Joy has to leave, and so
Yeah,
I'm not, again, we're not 100% sure whether we're supposed to, and maybe we get clarification from that for future meetings, Linda, if you have the opportunity. Does it have to remain a quorum the entire time the meeting is in session? We did not go through some of the changes to the budget. We did have an email from Chief Hayford explaining his changes to his budget, but when I look at the overall budget from him, it's not.
It didn't change
It
much.
didn't change hugely. He went from 360,000, the approved budget, to 370,000, but he's also changed an officer from part-time to full-time. Officer Tessa,
No,
The new-
Tessa was
the
the
new
new hire.
officer.
yeah, I forget her last name.
Tessa Llewellyn, she was the new
Llewellyn,
hire.
thank you. Yes.
So that was a backfill.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know,
I thought you
for
were
an
saying-
empty position, no.
Okay, I thought you were saying it was the part-time position converted to full-time, it was not.
No, it wasn't
Okay.
gonna, right. She backfilled into that full-time position. So, I think that 10,000 accounts for a lot of that. There are areas where he reduced, and so the warrant article for the new truck or new car is not on here, is it?
It was
It is.
the next page,
Where?
yeah,
What
60,
article number?
top of the page. It was $63,000. Sorry,
No?
I would say it was top of page 2.
top page 2, I believe, yeah.
Number 7.
Oh, number
Article
7,
7.
okay. Article
So the
7.
price it went down on that.
Well,
Linda-
there was an estimate of $80,000, but the actual closer to the closer estimate is 63.
I believe some of the cost savings in there, Linda, I remember we discussed it, I can't remember the exact
They-
budget cost. Reusing the lighting
Yeah.
from the old vehicle, that type of thing. Because those light bars are very, very expensive, and it's specialized equipment for the car. So that is being reused for the new vehicle. Significant cost savings right there.
So, we were gonna table the road priorities anyway, because, nobody from the DPW is able to attend.
Well, if I
And I did ask Joe if he has the ability to go sit with Dave Swift sometime and talk to him and see if we can,
Yeah.
and Josh,
I'll
not,
meet with Josh and the guys again, if you can set that up, Linda. I can meet over at the barn again, and if we can get an updated list. We also wanted to see a list of, remember the gravel roads as well?
Well,
correct.
so the
Yeah.
conversation
So-
that happened in the select board was that they were going to update the road list that they provided based on the report that you and Josh put together. And the gravel roads are not considered kind of CIP because it's just constant ongoing maintenance that
Okay.
is within the operating budget as opposed to separate warrant articles.
I would
that
They
suggest
do
that
have culverts.
So, and maybe this is where you can do perhaps a better job of our communicating to them why we
Yeah,
were looking for
because of the
gravel
culvert
roads.
repairs and things.
Right,
Yeah.
and so recognizing that while the gravel roads require constant care and they regrade them probably at least twice a year, knowing which roads require more maintenance than which other
Other
ones,
ones
and
does.
prioritizing them is still, I think, an important endeavor for them. And it gives the town an idea of where the road priorities are, what might be coming up in terms of any, I would say culvert or accessory to the road work that has to be done.
Yeah, because there is a cost associated with that
Those,
one, the
yes.
labor, the grader, the road fill, the culverts. So there is a significant cost to maintain those roads.
Yeah.
Sharon, real
Yes.
quick, when you meet with the DPW, highly recommend, just in case, and I appreciate you went from $500,000 to $400,000, but in case at the annual meeting, that it gets cut further, get back to your comment about priority.
Yes.
Even those red roads, the ones that are red coated, prioritize those.
I believe that
Which
they
we did.
currently
Okay,
are,
if
but I
great,
think
'cause
that
way
needs
there,
updating.
If the public says, I'm gonna give you 350 or 300, whatever it is, at least you can take care of the ones that are in worse shape. By prioritize all the roads.
The
and
worst
that
of
would
the
be great.
worst.
Ron, that's why I went out, I actually
Okay.
drove the roads, I took pictures and
Yeah.
I wanted to see for myself,
Right, I
like,
agree.
what's going on here.
So, actually, now that I've sort of appointed you to the board,
Oh, yeah,
you
Ron,
can
you're
actually come sit here.
Oh, it's past my bedtime.
Well, you have to keep it.
Next meeting,
I'm sorry, Asia's asked me a question, what?
Would that mean that you would have a quorum
Yes,
present
yes,
Oh.
in the room?
yes.
Oh, we won, that's
Yeah.
right.
Can vote to elevate
when-
Ron to a member for the, wait, he's not officially appointed though. Does he have to go through select?
Selectmen, right? Have to
The
officially
way the
sign.
ordinance reads, the chairman of the ABC can appoint.
But I have to be
selectmen
sworn in
kind of-
now.
You have to be sworn
I have
in
to
by
be sworn
Mike,
in.
I think, right? Yeah.
He would have to be sworn in.
So you can come up here, you can sit and you can voice your opinion, you're just not a voting member. So you don't constitute
I
the
would-
quorum. Alright, so seeing as how you have to leave,
I do.
we're not 100% sure about the whole quorum in the room thing. I would like to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting, for, and the next scheduled one would be January 14th here at 6 PM in the town hall lower level. Would anyone else like to second it?
January 14th.
January 14th.
Yeah.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Roll call vote.
Joy,
That's
I.
right.
Sharon, I.
Joe Dame, aye.
Rick? Okay. Thank you all. We did not get through all of our agenda, but
And I wanna
Thank
thank
you.
the